welcome to Short Takes with Phoebe and Sid. With so much to talk about, Phoebe and I decided to do some short takes on current issues just so we get to pick each other's brain on news and gossip that interests us both. So, here we go. First round, Meghan and Harry's interview with Oprah.
Which I don't know anything about.
Until I briefed you, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You actively blocked it because you thought it wasn't even that important.
I don't get why this is front page news. If this was in the entertainment section, then fine, they're famous people, but why is everyone so obsessed with them? The news is literally, some people said some things. Why is that news?
Because I feel like, this might sound offensive, but I feel like for a modern monarchy to stay as relevant as the Queen of England, the ideals that they used to define themselves in the past has unfortunately changed, and there's this heavy reliance on exposure and media to keep them in the conversation, whether it's a healthy or toxic one. That's my observation, and again, I'm not British. I clearly don't share the same sentiments for the royal family.
I don't know if it's something they personally enjoy or the media are just really obsessed with the royals, like how it happened with Diana back in the day.
Well, I wouldn't be able to say anything for the British public, but for me personally, they've always been interesting because they're the royal family that's most talked about. They have this image, they have all this drama, this backstory, and they also represent a certain type of class, white, privileged class from the British Empire from centuries ago. So for that part, it's kind of interesting. But specifically speaking about the issue with Meghan and Harry and their interview with Oprah, my take on that is that I feel like I don't know what their intentions are. I don't think that any of these celebrities' intentions can be completely innocent. When I say completely innocent, is come on, they gotta survive. They gotta talk about something, they gotta do stuff to generate revenue and profit for their existence as public figures. But what I do appreciate from this interview that they did was that, like Diana's role, they're sort of publicly raising awareness towards certain illnesses. For Diana, it was AIDS, right? She was the first royal to publicly shake hands and hug a patient with AIDS, and that really changed our stigma towards them. And I'm not saying that the royal family doesn't do that. It's just they just don't happen to have that much publicity as people like Diana or Meghan or Harry, and so the impact is just not as strong. And what Meghan's done this time is that she's allowing people that struggle with all sorts of types of mental illness to understand that even a princess has these struggles, and even a princess has to find a way to deal and live with these struggles and learn how to move on, and I think that's a very, very positive impact, irregardless of whatever intentions they had in the beginning. That's not my problem. I don't care.
Sure, I guess so. But I'm not sure if that's the part that everyone is focusing on. Everyone seems to be focusing on the racial issue.
Yeah, the racial issue is definitely very sensitive, and it's horrifying. If it were true, then it clearly is horrifying. But it's also a very good opportunity for people to point out that, whether it's directly from the monarchy, racism still exists in America, in Europe, and anywhere where, unfortunately, white people are still privileged because of their skin color.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know why people would be so surprised. Obviously, I don't know about what exactly she said, but I'm assuming she didn't name whoever it was that said rude comments towards her. But the royal family, the queen and the prince, they are very old. It's not exactly surprising in their generation to make rude racial comments. Everyone has that weird grandma or weird uncle who does that. And I feel like people just have very high expectations of celebrities, especially when they have certain connotations like royalty, that they have to be perfect somehow and moving with the times, when the reality is they're 100. They lived in a different time, so they're not going to be perfect in the terms of political correctness in the current age, and it's not shocking at all.
I think what would be disappointing for me if I put myself in the shoes of someone that was very engaged with all this royal drama is that I agree with you that, Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, they're from the last generation, and frankly, it's not really their responsibility to be woke. I mean, that was not their generation.
Yeah.
I'm more disappointed in William and Kate because they haven't done anything upsetting, but they have been too conservative, too careful about their image, and that's what irks me. I feel like, you know, you're gonna be the future king.
They kind of have to because they're the future king and queen.
That's true. I mean, again, I'm not invested, so my comments are just like, you know, trivial opinions on like, why doesn't he or she say that? Could have been better. But hey, I know life is complicated for a royal, and they must have their reasons why, you know, voicing out what seems to be politically correct in the current political climate. Whether that's important or necessary for them.
There's been a very different take in the press depending on whether you're viewing the British or American press on what's happening.
That is true. So why don't we start from the British press, since like you live there, you might know a little bit more than me on how the tabloids are commenting on this.
Yeah, the tabloids. They annoy me so much. Just the way they phrase their headlines make me want to bonk someone on the head.
How so?
It's just very inane.
I feel like they're very aggressive. I feel like it's not just clickbait anymore. It's like you can imagine this very angry editor trying to like constantly fuel anger. Angst.
Yeah, and they just try to keep the conversation going in any possible way. First you report on the initial interview, and then you're like, this person's take on what happened, and who cares about this person? This person responds to this person's take on what happened.
Yeah, and none of it are really directly from the source of whatever drama or problem people are talking about. It's always a royal expert, which, I don't know, does that basically mean someone who spent a lot of time covering royal news? Because that title, and I'm sorry if this sounds offensive, that title confuses me, because like if you are a political specialist, you know, and in a news organization, or like if you're a medical specialist, I mean, you're expected to have information on certain things that are not only talked about in the news to the lay public, it's also like sort of echoed or confirmed by experts as well.
Yeah, but
what
who's
makes
the
you an expert
on the royal family
someone's
and
personal
their internal
life.
dealings?
Yeah, because I would understand if like you're an expert on how, like, you know, rules and laws or historical traditions in the monarchy, but like who's racist, who's not, who's in power. How do you know about the personal lives of royal people? How do you be an expert on that? It's just a
huge, complicated celebrity fuckfest. They're just kind of feeding off each other's celebrity and the few people who find their opinions relevant somehow to add to the conversation.
I think like in America, gossip it's still aggressive, but it's relatively laid back because they don't label the word expert on someone whose job is to follow people around and take photos. Like, it's always a quote from a friend. Like, oh, a friend of Britney Spears says this, a friend of Angelina Jolie says this. It's never like a royal expert or a Hollywood expert, you know, yada yada yada,
weird.
says. Super weird. But generally what I'm seeing from the American press is that they're actually more welcoming and more empathetic with Meghan, and a lot of the more, I wouldn't say serious, but like journalistic outlets that really want to fight for a certain cause, they're focusing a lot on how Meghan is shedding light on mental issues, and this is actually something that America is trying to make an effort on, is that they have like a journalism program, and at the moment I can't really remember what the full name is, but it's funded by Columbia, and it trains journalists how to write about war, conflict, and trauma.
Right, cool.
And so journalists at the moment, from what I'm seeing, they're trying to reframe the narrative and direct towards, this is a problem. Let's not get into the details on how fun or interesting or dramatic the problem is. Let's figure out solutions. Let's raise awareness. And I feel like I see that as a very optimistic take on how things have gone in terms of their interview.
Would you say that Americans are less royal obsessed, so they can take this situation and try to apply it to more practical topics to be talked about instead of, you know, just focusing on the gossip?
Yeah, because I feel like, then again, I'm not completely sure, but from what I'm reading from both sides, what I sense is like, the British public has a very close and intimate relationship with the monarchy, almost as if the monarchy were family members of their own families, their own households.
Yeah.
So there's this narrative or this type of dialogue that sounds something like, you know, when someone's like, you can complain about how annoying your parents are and how corrupt they are for being horrible at with parenting and how they messed up your life. But with the moment someone, you know, attacks your parents, you get super defensive, even though, you know, at some point your parents probably fucked up. I feel that sort of defensiveness.
Like the British public identifies more with the royal family. Not all of them. Some people are very anti-royal, but a big proportion of the population still has that queen and country tradition, whereas the Americans are just kind of watching from the sidelines and probably rooting for Meghan since she's American.
Yeah, and I also feel like other countries, the royal family is like another famous institution. It's like, I'm not equating George Clooney's equivalence to the Queen, but I'm just saying, like, for someone that's not British and doesn't have that relationship with the monarch, the idea of Kate or William is the same as, you know, any famous Hollywood star. They're celebrities. They're famous. They're unattainable. They're pretty, and they're interesting.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Speaking of that, what do you think, like, us as Asians tend to view this, or how is it represented in Chinese media or Taiwanese media, based on what
regarding the monarchy or the English monarchy?
Yeah, regarding the English monarchy and obviously the gossip that has been, you know, streaming on the internet concerning Meghan and Harry's interview with Oprah.
Well, in China, I feel like there's two actually very conflicting takes that exist symbiotically somehow. There's the everyone wants to be a princess and everyone wants to marry a prince thing. So we're kind of curious about the whole idea since we got rid of our monarchy over 100 years ago. We like the, you know, connotations of a royal family, but we're also very proud of our traditions of not having
modernity.
Monarchy, that we, you know, started a revolution, got rid of the monarchy. Not that we're in a very democratic situation at the moment, but we have this kind of national pride about what happened when we overthrew the monarchy. So it's like, we don't want any of that here, but we are very curious about what happens with these countries that do have royals. And every little girl has a dream about marrying a prince. How about in Taiwan?
What I get from the media here, it's still treated as gossip. We don't see the monarchy as something to look up to. It's like I said, it's like talking about any famous person that is entertaining, and whether their art or their personal lives. But I agree that there's like two extreme perspectives towards the current events. I feel like there are a lot of people who see Meghan as like a social class climber, and there are other people that sympathize with her. But I feel like because our media is also unhealthy, it's just not as aggressive to the point, because I'm sorry, we have a relatively lazier media industry. If it's foreign news, no one's going to send a car after. Yeah, like, we're too laid back for that.
What I felt about Taiwanese media is that it doesn't care so much about things happening outside of Taiwan as, you know, media in other countries when they treat international news. Taiwanese people are very Taiwan focused.
Well, we're not funded enough, and our readers don't necessarily care.
Yeah, but not much happens in Taiwan. What does the news talk about?
There's sometimes that I read about stuff on mainstream and what we should call serious news outlets, and I'm like, why is this news? I mean, it's not gossip, but is this relevant to
Remember that giant rubber duck? They reported on that giant rubber duck going to different ports for like a year.
There was this one time where I read about like, so apparently there's this one like local vendor, like little like food stand with seats. And in order to make it easier, I guess, for their local customers to discern the difference between certain dishes, they printed everything out life size on the table. And someone, I guess, with questionable depth perception, hopefully he wasn't sick, but I'm just saying, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody disabled, but I was trying to say was someone got confused on whether that was real food or not, and that went on the news.
What?
You would think that if we had resources to
somebody
send a reporter
couldn't
to
read
do that,
a menu on a table of a street vendor
that had a life-size picture of a bowl of ramen.
Wow.
Yeah,
Compared to that, the rubber duck news is like quality journalism.
It is. It's very quality journalism. But what I'm trying to say is that we over-sensationalize news as well, gossip as well. Basically, we're treating this as trivial gossip, and people like conspiracy theories in Taiwan a lot, and our pundits thrive on those scripted debates.
I guess that makes sense, because if there's a lack of interest in foreign news initially, you need to spin it in some sort of way that makes it more intriguing or gossipy for people to pay attention.
Yeah, that's why a lot of like our more idealistic journalistic outlets are trying really hard to like sort of produce hard news while trying to also do explanatory journalism like Vox does, hopefully to get the public or the younger generation more engaged in issues that actually matter.
Sure. And what is their take on this whole marrying a prince thing? Is that appealing to
like,
Taiwanese
Asian
people? Yeah.
It's like marrying George Clooney. It's the same thing.
So there's like, not any particular marrying a prince and then you become a princess thing.
I think people care about the royal family because of Diana's impact.
Even in Taiwan?
Yeah, because like Diana was a worldwide sensation. She was gorgeous, she was charming, and she had her own individual impact in many aspects. It's like if you were to report on something funny Obama did, or interesting that the Obama family or the Trump family did. I don't particularly think that the Queen of England is that important just because we're not British. Sorry.
Well, yeah, she's very old now. She hasn't done anything particularly interesting for a while. Apart from being immortal. That's very interesting.
I think what people do find interesting is like the shades of colors that she wears. Like she has like there's a whole rainbow spectrum of the types of suits that she wears. That made the news. That did make the news.
Oh yeah, I remember all the memes when she wore that bright green suit and people started photoshopping different colors on it because it was like a green screen.
I know. I'd like to ask you a question since we're on the Asian topic. Mm-hmm. Do you and your friends ever talk about marrying a prince, or what are your parents or like, you know, people around you, what are their takes on marrying a prince? Because I was brought up in a family where my mom was trying to get me to be a very independent woman, and she heard so many stories about celebrities who tried to marry into like what we would equate with royal families, as in like rich institutions, rich companies.
Sure.
You know, and the gossip often led to like dreadful divorces, a lot of cheating on the guy's side, yada yada yada, and a lot of bullying from the richer family.
What about the Disney? You're a big Disney fan. Don't you have that princess thing from watching all the Disney princesses?
Nah, I always wanted to be a Princess Leia type. I never wanted to be a princess I wanted to be born a princess, if that makes any sense. I never wanted to be married to a prince to justify my title as a princess. If I ever had a fantasy that came with the connotation of princess, it was always like, I want to be Princess Leia. I want to be someone who's born a princess and happens to be a superwoman. Cool. I've never wanted to marry someone rich. It's never appealed to me.
That makes sense. By the way, if you ever wanted to get a kick out of having a title, I think in the UK you can pay like £100 and get yourself a title.
Yeah. I know, I read those ads. They give you like a tiny piece of land and you're like a lordship or something, right?
Yeah. Why not? You know, when you're choosing the title in the drop-down menu, I always want to pick something weird, like a Right Honourable.
Well, I don't really need to do that because, okay, this is funny because like, my other British like co-worker that used to work with me laughed at me about this, and I did realize how ridiculous this would sound to a British person. So
go on.
I force my kids to call me either Princess or Lady Sydney, just because I realize I'm not born a princess. I might as well make myself one, and their kids are gullible. And it serves my vanity very well. And I used to have a British co-worker who was teaching with me at the same cram school, and he was like, well, he had this very, like, East London accent that I can't do. I'm gonna butcher it. But he was basically like, oh, I've never had a chance to call someone a lady. I'm definitely going to use this opportunity to make fun of you as much as I want.
Yes,
because I don't know any lords and ladies.
British people would find that very funny.
Well, it's, okay, the justification was, for the kindergartners, it was really easy to, like, trick them into calling me princess. But for the older kids, it was like, what? And then I was like, well, they didn't understand the connotations that came with the title lady, and for them that just meant woman or miss or missus in their idea, because their vocabulary test, lady just meant a lady, you know, a woman. So it's like, so you're calling me Lady Sydney because I don't want to be a Miss Weng yet, so sorry.
Why not? Works with kindergarteners.
Yeah, and I don't need a prince to be a princess. I can just be my own princess.
Yeah, and what is the difference really between that and spending £100 to buy a certificate that says you're a lady? Actually, more people in your kindergarten class recognize you as a lady than if you bought a certificate. You would have to tell people and show them the certificate, and they would judge you for actually going to the trouble of buying a certificate.
Exactly. And they respect the princess. They respect the ladyship, okay?
Wonderful.
How about you? How about you? Like, if you were to tell your friends that you wanted to marry a prince, would that be something that would be frowned upon or be encouraged?
I think my mom likes the idea. She has it in a very idealistic way. She thinks that I'm good enough for anybody. Her daughter is the best. I'm good enough for any prince, any celebrity.
Well, you are. You are.
She's not really worrying about the downsides of marrying someone rich and powerful, like, you know, the inheritance and cheating and that kind of thing.
I feel like this is more of a family culture thing. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that Asians particularly have an issue with marrying rich or marrying a prince. It's like, just, you know, get your shit together, don't screw up, and send money to your parents. It's like the main rule. Send money to your parents.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't care if you marry a self-made prince or a prince by birthright, just remember you are sharing your dough.
You can marry a dictator for all we care.
Yes, just make sure we don't all starve, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. If Meghan were East Asian, what do you think she would do in terms of whatever she's going through?
Well, there wouldn't be a story if Meghan was East Asian, like typically East Asian, because we wouldn't air our grievances with the family to the press. That's like big Asian no-no, right?
That is true. And I'm not completely sure how racism goes in terms of if there was a comparison between Asian and African American, because despite Meghan being biracial, like, she's half white, right? And I feel like a lot of the criticism towards her is unfortunately still riddled with racism. I'm not sure if an Asian would have that. Like, I'm sure there would be racism. I'm just not sure if it would be as strong or if it would have been directed in a certain way. The way that it was directed in Meghan's direction.
I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Meghan, but from my idea of her, she's just very American. There's nothing specifically African American that I associate with her. All I know is that she was an American actress. And that is reflected in her personality. So I feel like the people making a big deal about her race are just very racially focused people.
True. And I also feel like if it was an Asian person, if there had to be some type of discrimination, it would probably link it to a family business that's cheating their customers. I just feel like Asians constantly have that connotation where they're so shrewd business people, you know, that
shady
they must be
Asian
cheating on
supermarkets
something.
Always.
Yeah, I feel like there would be like, oh, so-and-so's father has been skipping taxes, and yes, he's a multimillionaire, yada yada yada.
I could totally imagine that.
I feel like that would be the type of stigma that would be associated with an Asian princess if she were to marry.
Oh, and maybe there would be the whole tiger mom thing when she has her child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or they would talk about her tiger mom, because, like, they always talk about the bride's mother. Like, they did it with Kate, they did it with Meghan's mom. Oh my god, the stories.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would be as harmful as, like, discussing the skin color, because I feel like Asians are kind of in between that, like, middle ground. It's our features that really tell you we're Asian. Our skin color, we're more obsessed about being fair and white than any other culture. Especially East Asians.
Oh, and also if Meghan were half East Asian in one of the countries touched by colonialism, there would be a whole different spin on that. Because the UK and America's colonial relationship is pretty mild considering.
Yeah, it would definitely be very interesting if the royal family were to ever bring in a bride that was half Asian or half or
like
fully
half
East
Chinese
Asian.
Or Philippines. They've done a lot of colonialism over here.
But I do agree with you that I don't think if Meghan had an East Asian cultural background, I don't think she would have made that big of a spectacle. There are people in East Asia who do use this tactic. I mean, I'm saying public figures, but generally what would be agreed upon was to take people down subtly and carefully and sneakily without people knowing how they died.
Yeah. She would throw shade so subtly that people wouldn't realize that she was throwing shade.
The East Asian mentality is like, we want you to realize how much shit you're in till the moment you realize one of your legs, one of your foot is already in the coffin. Close to you. That's how we
You're making it sound very scary.
We are. Don't fuck with Asians. You'll see. Look at Xi Jinping.
So this is where the Chinese mafia trope comes in.
Oh, that was a fun interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. So hopefully we come up with something interesting to talk about next time in these 5 questions that we do, the short takes. And that was fun. So see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.